This was a haven of self-expression in a judgmental world. The couple glided across the ballroom with a sense of ease. Each of their steps felt natural, almost weightless. Something about this, he knew not what, felt oddly familiar. He couldn't help but imagine Victor's face beneath that bird-like mask. How gracefully they moved, how gently they held him. This was beginning to feel supernatural. The coyote exhaled loudly. Now wasn't the time to be thinking such nonsense. Clearly, the only explanation was that they were both well accustomed to their dance steps. Cedric and the stranger drew close. Now was the time to act. He raised his left hand above his head, taking hold of their gloved hand again. Glancing downward, he noticed the silk purse he'd been eyeing had disappeared. Opening any of the other leather purses fastened to their belts would take too long. He needed to think quickly. He smoothly slid his right hand into their largest leather pocket. To his surprise, it was empty. Or was it? No, there was something inside after all. He felt it. There it was, the silk purse from earlier. It felt lighter than expected. The moment he moved away from the pocket was when the stranger grabbed his hand. Cedric almost jumped. Why the sudden gesture? Had he been caught? The musicians had begun to play a different tune, and his partner was leading him into this new dance. That was the most logical explanation. These thoughts were dashed when the stranger picked up and then gradually lowered the purse into the coyote's palm. With nary a spoken word, the message was crystal clear. Open it. Cedric was beginning to sweat. His breaths were loud under his mask. He did as he was told. He opened his purse, feeling around for its contents. Inside was a single tiny object, no larger than a chess piece. In fact, it was one, a piece he was too familiar with, that had been missing for quite some time. A white knife. The stranger leaned in towards him, so that their masks almost touched. Cedric could now see the pair of familiar eyes hidden behind the stranger's disguise. He was met with a fiery gaze with enough raw power to burn his skin off. It's time to come home, Cedric. I've captured the others. My guards have that disgusting fox locked up. He refused to believe what he was hearing. No, you're lying. It's not true. Cedric stepped back, but to no avail. Lysander forcefully yanked on his costume and pulled him back in. You wanted to dance with me, did you not? Let me go. Please. You wouldn't want to cause a scene now, would you? Cedric lowered his head. He kept on dancing despite not being able to feel his feet, nor any other part of his body anymore. There's a good boy. Where was Victor? What had happened to the others? Lie, you can't, you mustn't. Hold your tongue. That tail razor will be dangling on the gallows in a matter of hours, and yet you might still have a chance to save his life. Come quietly. Do as I say. Start a new life together with me, and I'll spare him. Cedric shook himself free from Lysander's grasp. Never. He needed to get away, to escape while he still could. Lysander didn't give chase, but replied by roaring after Cedric in blind rage. Go ahead, then. Run. I know you'll come back. That monster was right. It was too late already. There was nowhere to escape to. He was trapped. Just as Hollis was about to give up on waiting, he noticed Severn rushing down the steps on the main entrance. He waved to get his attention. Sal, over here. The cat was out of breath. For running, he grabbed onto the tiger as they caught up with each other to avoid falling over. We need to act quickly, or we're done for, Hollis whispered. Blake and Ridley had been nabbed. Shit. Jeeves. This is worse than I imagined. Hang the stupid names. What is it? Have you seen Cedric? No. Severn produced and unfolded some scrunched up papers he'd be carrying. I found these on a desk in the private chambers upstairs. Tonight, the mansion, the ball. It was all a giant setup. That's not possible. Do you know who owns this estate? Who? Don't just stand there. Tell me for heaven's sake. Hollis shook him with such force the cat's wig was about to fall off. It's Lysander. Not him directly, but a branch of his family who owns his property. No, there's just no way. We couldn't have missed that. We would have recognized the family name. That's why I said it was a different branch. It's not the same surname. He planned all this. He financed over 50 guards, some of them disguised as attendees. He wants to throw us all in jail and execute Victor. How the fuck did Seven not know about this place? Wasn't he best friends with that piece of shit? I don't know. I just hope he hasn't got his hands on anyone else. I have a clue as to where they're keeping Blake and Red at least. With trembling hands, he flipped through the papers. Come on. Here, it's in the sketch of his plan for the night. All other bandits except the Fox are to be taken to the morning room or the library. That's 2 rooms. Which one is it? Don't yell at me. I don't know. We'll have to find out and pray we're lucky. Hollis nodded. He was trying to take some longer breaths to ease his nerves. I'm sorry. What about Vic? Should they capture him? Where will they take him? I couldn't find that in the notes. That lying bastard's the only one who knows, most likely. We need to find Dion and show him these papers. Hopefully, he'll manage to tell Vic and Cedric to make a run for it. Then we'll escape. Then we rescue Blake and Red and get the fuck out of here. Severn was still panting. I just need to catch my breath for a moment. Sal, we don't have time. I'm sorry. Hollis pointed up the stairs to the main entrance, flashing past the bewildered servants at the front door. Severn followed, using all his strength to keep up without tripping on his huge ball gown. Cedric was busy wandering the ground floor aimlessly. Time and space meant nothing to him anymore. It felt like he was walking around a giant theatrical set. All guests around him had been mere background characters this whole time, unknowingly participating in the plot against him. That's what this estate had been since he got here. An artificial illusion, the backdrop to a neatly constructed plan, everything the result of an insane lion's obsession. He tried focusing on any person or object in his vicinity, but everything felt distorted and unreal. Echoes of Lysander's voice filled his mind, drowning out any other thought. Had he actually done it? Had he captured all the others? There was still a chance he might be bluffing. The coyote's head felt like it was about to explode. Of course, a mansion near Hillsford, one of his family's endless properties. He was a complete idiot. Why didn't he look into who the owners were? Perhaps then he wouldn't have let himself, his partner, his friends fall into what should have been the most obvious trap. And yet, how could he know? Lysander was obsessive and controlling, sure, but Cedric had anticipated he would be crazy enough to organize something of such a scale. What for? Just to have him back in his life? Was that lion actually in love with him? If one could even dare to call this love, no, this was infatuation. How long had he been planning this? Just how many people had he involved? Well, just how many people had he involved? Had he purposefully invited Elizabeth and Hortense by sending them an anonymous letter? What about that older woman? The fact her voice sounded familiar was no longer a strange coincidence. If only he could stop his mind from leaping to the only possible conclusion. That icy, distant tone, the talk of children being a disappointment. Cedric felt his entire body shake. He danced with his own mother. Lysander had planned it all. He blinked. He briefly returned to his senses, just enough to notice he was standing at the top of the grand staircase. Looking down the front hall from where he stood, he desperately tried to find someone he recognized in the crowd. No one. Before him was a sea of dark and out-of-focus shapes scurrying across the marble floors like ants. Dion, where are you? Victor. The image of the four nobles leading the fox away from the hallway, or leading away from the ballroom slowly and inevitably appeared before his eyes. As much as he tried, he couldn't unsee it. What have they done to him? He wanted to cry out for help, but his mouth was sealed shut. He couldn't move. It felt like he was about to stop breathing. He stumbled backwards and slammed into a hanging tapestry in the wooden panels behind it. He was trapped in a lonely fight against a panic attack he knew was approaching. It was a lost cause. His breath grew frantic. A pain, the likes of which he never felt, was forming in his chest. Lysander was right. There was no escape from this. All his worst fears were realized. This was hell on earth. He threw his left hand onto a table just a few inches from where he stood to save himself from collapsing onto the ground. He hardly noticed he sent a brass candelabra hurtling towards the wooden floor. He heard a metallic clang and bounced and landed at the center of the dark red carpet. A flame grew and engulfed the fabric, but Cedric was still completely unable to react. He could see what was happening, what he'd just done, but his mind was unable to put two and two together. It was only when the fire spread to the nearby curtains and furniture, when the smoke caused him to cough loudly, that his instincts kicked in. Fuck, what have I done? He ran for the staircase. The crowd, aghast, had begun to murmur. Some thought they could smell smoke. Some swore they caught sight of it. Once the flames became visible from the ground floor, the murmuring got louder. Cedric felt the air move as heaps of servants rushed past him, carrying buckets full of water, and then again as they ran back the way they came from, having discovered the fire had already grown too big to be put out easily. None of the guests had left the building, believing it was only a matter of time before the situation would be back under control. The staff, on the other hand, were in complete chaos. Most were still attempting to put out the fire. Others had been tasked with grabbing what they could save for the most important rooms on the first floor. Everyone seemed to be madly rushing about, with the exception of the coyote. He slowed down again and could barely reached the bottom of the stairs. Music could still be heard coming from the ballroom, where dozens upon dozens of guests were still merrily unaware anything had gone wrong. Cedric coughed again, and the moment he brought his hand to his muzzle, he noticed his hat and mask had fallen off. He glanced up at the far end of the balcony, which was now engulfed in bright flames. There was no chance of him getting back. There was no chance of him getting them back. Not that it mattered anymore. A server cut through the tense atmosphere, yelling out so that all could hear him. Having mentioned that they could no longer contain the fire and that it would soon reach the ground floor, he encouraged each guest to grab their belongings and evacuate the premises. This was a moment when curiosity turned into panic. Some guests hurried into the ballroom to warn their friends and acquaintances of the fire, bumping into each other on the way. Others were fighting tooth and claw to reach the tiny cloakroom, grabbing their hats and coats would be essential if they wanted to survive the snowstorm outside. Arguments and fistfights broke out, drinks were dropped during the panic, which caused many to lose their balance and slip on their way to exit. An old woman was injured from her fall, after which some of the staff were forced to step in to try coordinating guests on their way out. Cedric, there he is. Didn't you hear what they said? We need to get out of here before the fire spreads. He's not well. Though Cedric's vision was still blurry, he recognized Elizabeth's costume and mask. Easy now, take some deep breaths. You're alright, Cedric. Everything's alright. He finally managed a long breath. Hortense took hold of him and set him down on a nearby chair. We're here for you. Cedric's vision was getting clearer. At last, he was able to focus on the objects and people closest to him. The pain was subsiding. His mind felt lighter. He closed his eyes and let out a long and raspy sigh. Liz, Hortense, thank you. What happened? Were you upstairs when the fire broke out? All of a sudden it felt like the coyote's brain had been fired up at twice its usual speed. I need your help. Have you seen a group of 4 men? One of them a rooster, the others a bull. Well, the others are all bulls. Come on, Cedric. Is this really the moment for such talk we need? Hortense interrupted her friend. Yes, as a matter of fact, we have. I noticed them speaking to a number of different guests earlier, all of them foxes. It struck me as quite odd. We don't have time for this. Liz, if he's asking it, it must be important. Don't you understand? Might want to put commas there. The doe folded her arms. Fine. Where did they take them? I have no idea. Since we're on the subject, I saw them walking over to that door down there a number of times. Elizabeth pointed at the door Victor had been led through earlier. What's going on? What does this matter? Lysander is here. He set me up. I thought I'd escape his clutches, starting a new life. Cedric stood up from the chair. I have someone I need to save, someone he's captured and wants dead. Don't you dare go running off on your own. You don't understand. If you're going to do something risky, you'll need someone to come with you. Exactly. He smiled. These two had been nothing but good to him since the moment they met. And they were right. There was always strength in numbers. I don't know what I could have possibly done to deserve this. Follow me. The atmosphere in the library was a complete opposite of that in the main hall. The logs in the fireplace were burning merrily, lending a warm and lived-in feel to the tiny room. Yet all was not as idyllic as it seemed. What was usually a space reserved for reading or discussing books and authors with household guests was now being used as a makeshift cell to store Whitley and Blake until the night was over. The bandits had been thrown on a pair of chairs facing each other and firmly tied in place. 2 sentinels were keeping watch, one on each side of the door. Both Whitley and Blake had scanned the room multiple times, hoping to find some helpful tool or clue to a secret hidden passage among the many bookshelves so tall they almost reached the ceiling. A series of busts above them, matching those that could be seen in the rest of the house, tauntingly stared back at them. There was nothing unusual about the wooden library steps propped up against the furniture, nor the grandfather clock ticking away between the shelves. Trying his best to keep his mood from tanking, Blake looked up at the bust touching the ceiling. Who the fuck is Empedocles? I don't know about you, but I think he might have been Greek. Brainless comments like these were the only thing saving them from despair in this situation. I had a hunch he might be Greek given his name was Empedocles, Pedicles, and not Kelvin fucking Robinson. The Doberman let out a gentle, quietly desperate laugh. All right then, I demand a list of all the philosophers you're aware of. Oh, you want to feel better than me, do you? Just wait and see. Plato, there's one. Really nodded. Also, damn, I'm impressed. Thomas Hobbes. Hang on, how the fuck do you know who that is? Says it right there under that bus. Both banners broke out into laughter. Fuck all the way off. You were reading them out the whole time. It's called being quick-witted, my dear. A skill you benefit from, no doubt. The two locked eyes, and for a moment, silence lingered in the room. Do you think this is it? For us, I mean. I don't know. It might be. Blake sighed. Really, whatever happens, just know you mean the world to me. Thank you for seeing something in this wreck of a dog. It's comforting knowing someone believes in me. I wish I could. I've lived my whole life wanting to make my old man proud, just so he didn't die for nothing. If he knew I'd end up at the gallows, just like him. He shook his head, trying his hardest to suppress his tears. Please, you mustn't think like that. There's no one else out there as honest, as charming, as kind-hearted as you are. I never got the chance to tell my dad how much I love him. Something stirred in the dog then, a longing for a missed opportunity that he wouldn't pass up again. I love you, Whitley. Blake, I love you too. Whitley felt the urge to break free of the rope binding them, to leap out of his seat and run into the Doberman's arms. He tried to vividly picture this in his imagination, even just a little was enough. I'm simply thanking you for always being there for me and for putting up with all my flaws. Who says I put up with them? The bear snorted. Bitch. There was a knock on the door. This caused the guard in the library, who dozed off a couple minutes earlier during Whitley and Blake's banter, to awaken with a jolt. What on earth? Who goes there? The guard opened the heavy wooden door to reveal a masked Selwyn carrying a silver tray with a couple of glasses on the other side. Well, I thought Kenneth was out here. I haven't seen anyone nearby, dear. The cat stepped inside, bold as brass. Ma'am, I must object to your presence here. I've been given orders to. Oh, hang orders. You must be dying for a drink, all cooped up here as you are. Well, as a matter of fact, some of your companions sent me to come look for you. Here, have some sherry. Unable to get a word in edgewise, the guard grumbled and picked up one of the glasses. This is awfully suspicious, you know. You must be bored out of your mind. Severin lifted up his ball gown to reveal a glimpse of his stockings underneath. Perhaps I can change that. The guard almost spat out his drink and turned his head to his right in an attempt to avoid drenching the cat. That was all Sarah needed. With a movement so rapid it was nigh invisible, he decked the guard in the jaw, knocking him onto the floor with a loud thump. Neither Blake nor Whitley were able to contain their excitement at this turn of events. It was a feeling of great pride indeed, knowing any member of the masquerade was capable of performing an impromptu rescue mission like this. Fuck me, that was a punch and a half. Stunning work, Sal. How long have you been holding on to that strength? In a flash, the house cat ran up to Blake and began to meticulously untie the rope. That'll take ages. Aye, don't you think using a knife would be faster? Look, I only have a pocket knife on me. I'll never cut through this rope. Willie chose to poke him a little, despite or perhaps because of the tense atmosphere. Just say you'd rather preserve it for the next time you need to use it on one of us. Selwyn pointed a finger at him jokingly. Shut the fuck up. You probably have gotten off to being captured and tied up, you little slip. Blake had been freed before even reaching the end of that sentence. Impressive. Less than 20 seconds later, Seven helped and freed Whitley to his feet. What's our escape plan? We don't have one. Are the others safe? I'm afraid I don't know. Hollis and I split up. He's gone searching for Dion, Sid, and Vic. Whitley threw one of the large windows open. A gust of cold wind blew into the warm room, putting out the fire. Gang, how do we feel about making our way back to the carrots through the gardens and getting the fuck out of here? Blake got a running start and leaped over to the windowsill. Approved. He was followed by his lover and lastly the less agile Selwyn, who slowly sat himself on the windowsill, got his gown caught on a piece of furniture and tumbled to the ground, tearing through his costume. Blake was over to pick him up, rolling his eyes. Fuck's sake, Selwyn, you do something impressive and then end it on that? I'm fine, by the way. In the room to the opposite end of the house, the silence was unbearable. Victor waited for any sound, a cough, a loud breath, a spoken word. Nothing. Just the sight of two tiny flames nearby. They belonged to a pair of thick candles the guards had left on a wooden table. If it hadn't been for them, the room would have been shrouded in complete darkness. It was thanks to this light he discovered he wasn't alone, as his first thought. He'd been left to share the space with 7 other people, most of whom were foxes, each of them sitting or lying on the floor. The flame had grown tall, and its movements frenzied. The faces of those closest to it were clearly visible. As for any other detail, the majority of the room's contents remained a mystery. A velvet-covered canopy, an armchair with its little footstool, and a coffee table were the only objects whose existence one could be certain of, looking like theatrical props that had been discarded backstage. Time had come to a standstill. The room's 8 occupants had been completely cut off from the outside world. Finally, a sound, footsteps belonging to the guard standing watch outside. He'd probably grown tired of being stuck here. None of the other hostages were as bloody and badly bruised as Victor was. Despite being pity for him, they were counting their lucky stars that hadn't been left in a similar state. This is absolutely outrageous. Someone brave or foolish enough have broken the silence at last. I don't know who is behind this or the person they're looking for, but whoever owns this godforsaken mansion shall be hearing from me until I have dragged every last penny out of their pockets. The disgruntled nobleman was sitting next to the vulpine gentleman from earlier, who had turned out to be a handsome Wolverine beneath their disguise. The makeshift press gang, the makeshift press gang from earlier had probably discovered their species only after yanking off their mask, and thus they'd been thrown in with the other foxes just to be safe. The reason being that they had seen too much for their own good. That's very lawful, you, sir. Personally, if we're given money to keep quiet once we're released, I would accept it, no questions asked. I'm averse to bribery. The Wolverine was taken aback by the passive-aggressive answer. All right, you have money already. Don't you? That doesn't look like a cheap costume I made myself. It's quite cheap if you know the right people, and it's none of your business. Well, forgive me for not singing your praises. My voice isn't what it used to be. Oh, piss off. I tried to tell myself you nobles weren't all cunts, but I've been proven very wrong this evening. Knock it off, both of you. It's pointless arguing. The other fox grumbled. I'm sorry, I'm in a foul mood. I didn't mean a word of it. Who do you think they're searching for anyway? The Wolverine pointed at Victor. Him, by the look of it. The bandit turned his head away. Now was the time to be subjected to 7 strangers' judgment. Those ruffians really dare numb on you. If we could help in any way, we would. Leave me alone, please. Upon hearing his desperate tone, the others had mercy on him and went back to muttering among themselves. Victor buried his face in his hands. If that press gang parading and simple guests had been able to lure him in so easily, surely they must have succeeded in capturing the other bandits too. This had to be that Lysander's doing. He'd been desperately trying to retain some hopeful thoughts, but these were powerless against the worst fantasies that had vividly formed in the corners of his mind. He could picture the others rotting away in the cell just as he had years before, all their hopes and dreams of a better life gone. Cedric being forced to live with that disgusting lying day after day. Himself being led uphill to the gallows, climbing the wooden steps and feeling the rope tied around his neck. He had to fight the urge to throw up. He didn't care about himself. He never felt particularly afraid of dying. It was the thought of being torn apart from his lover, of not being able to help him, that hurt him the most. The thought that his casual interaction with the coyote earlier was the last exchange the two would ever have. A wave of rage hit him. What had he done to deserve this? Was there any justice left on this vile planet? He slammed his foot on the wooden door. It rattled noisily, but remained firmly in place. Oi, don't you scum try anything funny. I'll slice your hands off. The ox outside was sick of putting up with all the moaning and arguing he'd been hearing for the last hour. Dirty fox bastards. His fellow guards were free to roam the giant hallways and secretly indulge in a drink or two while there he was, stuck at the back of the building in a depressing-looking corridor. To be fair, he hadn't been left to fend for himself. 5 guards in total had been assigned to the tea room door. The rooster, their superior, had told them theirs was one of the most vital jobs that evening. Following this grand statement, he asked if that meant they'd receive a higher pay in return. This, of course, was met with a vague and dismissive answer. God forbid they should toss an extra ceiling our way. The British economy would crumble. Thus they had barely lasted half an hour before his companions had started to protest, grumbling about the need to stretch their legs or go out for a smoke. and the end result was him standing there on his own like a fool. A cry for help broke the silence. His ears twitched and his head turned with a jolt. Who's there? What's happening? Hortense and Elizabeth appeared and stumbled towards him in a panic. Oh, sir, please help. A fire has broken out in the main hall. We can't get out. This was met with an eye roll. Oh, please, go bother someone else. The guard's instinctive response was to be skeptical, but as soon as the woman had come up to him and the sound of their footsteps had ceased, the distant commotion coming from the front of the building reached his ears. What's more, their costumes smelled smoke. Blimey, you're not joking. How bad is it? It's really bad. Please come with us. You must know of a way to get out of this place. One funny twist of fate, that thanks to the job he'd been assigned, he was now in a safer area than almost everyone else in the mansion. Forget those free drinks, he'd rather escape a massive fire unharmed. Well, I'll be damned. Follow me, ladies. The ox marched off confidently with the two women in pursuit. He pointed them towards an exit and then considered what his best course of action was. Should he get back to his station and wait in case the fire was miraculously dealt with? Perhaps he could stand halfway between the room he was guarding and the closest exit. There was a flash of green. The moment he turned the corner, Cedric emerged from the saddles and threw himself at the guard, tossing a punch to his face with all his strength. There was a loud crack upon impact. Next, a moment of silence. The guard flew backwards, hovering in midair. Though this seemed to go by in slow motion, it didn't last long. He landed headfirst onto the ground with a loud and messy thud, knocking a table and a flower pot over in the process. He didn't move a muscle. The coyote had knocked him clean out. Good grief, Cedric. That was a lot. The bandit was only half listening. He bent down, reaching for the keys tied to his victim's belt. Trust me, these people deserve it. In an instant, they found themselves in front of the door the ox had been guarding. Victor, it's me, Cedric yelled out, turning the key and frantically pushing against the door with his shoulder. A moment later, there was a click and the door unlocked. Cedric threw himself at it, causing it to burst open and slam against the wall. Luckily, none of the hostages were close enough to get hit. As soon as he sighted Victor, the coyote rushed to him and cut the rope binding his hands and feet with a tiny dagger Ridley had hidden in his costume. His heart sank. Victor looked a complete mess. His hair was matted, his ears hung low, dark bruises were visible across his face, and dried blood covered his white costume. Oh God, what have they done to you? The fox's eyes, however, had lit up. Cedric, I thought I'd never see you again. Since they noticed Cedric was getting sidetracked, his friends took matters into their own hands. They were no longer questioning what was happening or why on earth a group of foxes and a wolverine were locked up in a dark room. All they knew was that this was clearly a matter of life or death, and that they wanted to help set things right. Give me the dagger. I'll free the others. The coyote handed Hortense a weapon so that he could focus on picking up Victor. All right, everyone, listen to me. The good news is you're all free to go. The hostages sprang to their feet in excitement, any past animosity between them forgotten about. The wolverine took Elizabeth's hand while the fox noble thanked her earnestly. I haven't finished. We have a bit of an emergency at the moment. A fire has broken out on the first floor. Oh, for heaven's sake. The wolverine gave his newfound companion a playful jab. What an evening, yeah? Things are starting to get smoky and more than a tad warm. But don't worry. You should still be able to take it. You should still be able to make it across the main hall. Each of them thanked her one last time and squared away without asking further questions. Liz, we need to go. Hortense glanced over at Cedric and Victor. Surely there are other exits nearby. They'll both be slower than us. It wouldn't be safe for them to cross the main hall. We don't have a chance. Other exits would just lead us to the gardens, which we have to navigate in the dark. You're right, and during a snowstorm, too. As they spoke, the smoke had reached them and was getting heavier. Just whatever you do, stay safe, the coyote replied with a nod. Cedric, it's been a pleasure. Till next time. Girls, wait. How can I ever repay you? Both Elizabeth and Hortense were already halfway down the corridor. He only just managed to catch the doe's response. Come visit us in Yellville. You'll have tea and discuss what the hell just happened. Cedric couldn't help but chuckle. Following this positive turn of events, he had a strong feeling this wouldn't be their last encounter. A cough from his partner brought him back to reality. He slid Victor's arm on his shoulders, locking his own arm around the fox's back to get as sturdy as grip as he could manage. Can you walk, V? Victor nodded, attempting a faint smile. I think so. Hot tears were streaming down his cheeks as they took their first steps forward. Cedric, I thought he had you. I thought we lost, that everything was over. Cedric could feel waves bubbling up inside him. He thought he had me too. But that piece of shit doesn't know the difference between the real person he's dealing with and the fictionalized, helpless one he's created in his head. By the time they reached the main hall, it had been completely abandoned. The flames had fully engulfed the right half of the building and were spreading to the ground floor. Cedric had to rush the fox away from the area below the stairs. He could see the burning banisters were about to give way at any moment. It was unbearably hot. Looking to his right, he could see the ballroom was still standing, untouched by the flames. The same couldn't be said. Looking in the opposite direction, there was just about nothing left of the dining room. The fire had spread quickly, and that ridiculous wine fountain had proven the finishing touch. The floor was littered with glass shards, abandoned hats, masks, and pieces of fabric. Kit, breathe. Come on, my darling. We're almost there. They were hit in full force by a freezing gust of wind the moment they set foot outside. Victor let out a sigh of relief. Much better. Lucky coincidence, that fire. Any idea who started it? I did. You're taking the piss? Really? The coyote nodded. It was a bit of an accident. The fox was clearly impressed. Couldn't have done a better job myself. Cedric was looking for any abandoned carriage they might be able to use to get away faster. There were none left. All the guests had taken them to flee back to town. Their own red carriage was nowhere to be seen either, but that was a good thing. It meant there was a high chance the others had made it back to the camp safely. The two lovers walked down the steps one at a time. When they reached the bottom, they felt their boots sink into the thick snow covering the gravel. Cedric let go of Victor so that he could brush the snow off his costume and pull his hood over his head. Although the storm was dying down, until that moment it had been strong enough to cover the footsteps left by all the other guests. As a result, beneath the smooth and glowing white surface was a layer of slippery brown slush. Victor had gathered enough strength for his pace to grow faster, but hadn't taken the slush into account. He slipped and fell backwards. Cedric moved as fast as he could. He caught his partner before the fox's head and shoulders could hit the ground. Careful, V. Victor was unable to contain a desperate laugh. How romantic of you to catch me, said. The coyote was about to answer when he noticed some movement in the corner of his eye. Could it have been the girls? Anyone sensible would have left by now. He turned his head to look at the burning building behind him. There was no reason for anyone else to still be there, unless the reason was to follow him and Victor. He prayed with all his might for it not to be who he thought it was. The fox began to fidget and attempted to pick himself up on his own. Where is it? What's happening? There he was, like a demon out of hell, his black cape flapping behind him like a pair of wings. Nothing but hatred left in his eyes. A beast ready to kill. We continue. Hello and thank you for reading this seventh build for Project New Moons Far From Grace. I hope you're all looking forward to what the next chapter has in store, especially after the final cliffhanger. Alright, so we covered this game here not too long ago, Eden's Reach, and I'm waiting for a new update to come out for this game, One Last Light, so I can start doing that. Alright, so yeah, apparently Lysander's obsession or love, I don't know. It probably is love in a sick, twisted way, I guess. But anyway, he really went that far to get Cedric back by orchestrating this whole plan. So this mansion is owned by people related to Lysander. but it's kind of like a branch of the family, so they all have the same surname, but they're all related to they're related to Lysander, which is why he was able to have it here in this place. And at the end there, he didn't seem all that phased at all by his relatives' Banson being on fire. So we're gonna have to see what happens between Cedric and Lysander. What becomes of, because I forgot his name already. The fox. This is one of the main characters. I forgot his name already. Anyway, I'm glad he's alright. It seemed everybody was able to live, because both what's his name, Blake, or the Doberman and Ridley, they thought it was it for them, and I think the Doberman confessed his love for her, that he loved her, and that she loved her, and that Ridley loved him too. It was a sweet moment. So happy that he was able to confess his feelings to Ridley. But again, a bad situation like that, when you're about to possibly die, it will make you reveal your true thoughts to somebody you care about. I mean, he may seem like a jerk to her, he may seem like a jerk to Whitley and all that, but he does love her. And I don't know about jerk, but kind of just tough, Anyway, so you have to see Hollis and Selwyn, and I just noticed something. It's been a while since we've seen Dion. We haven't really seen him much at all in this update. We've seen Hollis, we've seen Selwyn, plenty of them. We've seen Blake or the Doberman and Ridley, and we've seen Cedric and the fox. I forgot, but we haven't seen Dion lately. Hopefully he and everybody else is okay, and they made it out with the stuff they collected from the place. Unless somebody stole their thing, unless somebody stole their carrots, and they're still somewhere in the house. Now that would be a total failure. But hopefully, everybody got in the carrots and went to the camp. Hopefully. So yeah, this a cliffhanger. Kind of hate cliffhangers before the ends, because you gotta wait months to figure out the aftermath of it. Like watching TV where if there's a cliffhanger, you wait a week for it. You gotta wait months. So I just want to know at least if everybody's safe or not. But I think everybody's safe. So I figured that person said to dance with that woman was his mother. And I don't know if she was part of Lysander's plan, or if she was here unbeknownst to what Lysander was doing, but she made her opinion, said it clear that she really views him as a disappointment. So, yeah. I don't really like the mother. I really don't like his parents. But anyway, I might want to go back and look at that scene of what his mother told him again, because I haven't really focused on listening to what everything she said to Cedric. I was just busy reading the story so I can get it done. But I'm going to go back and look at that scene again with Cedric dancing with this woman who turned out his mother, to see what her thoughts were for Cedric, her son. So Hortense and Elizabeth, I think the person's name is, I guess. Well, both of them anyway. They were very kind to Cedric, and they helped him out a whole lot. So I really liked them. So yeah, all the CGs, all the character sprites, all of them is beautiful. All of them are very beautiful and well done. Everything's like in the detail, and that's what I like about this story here. The imagery, it gives you an idea of what's going on, and it really lets you go. Well, how can I say this? It's basically, it feels like you're kind of like in the world of this story, even though you're not. But when you got so many CGs and when they're in such detail, it feels like you're in the world. It's like you're almost like you're actually there. Now, in a lot of other VNs, you really don't have much of the story, much of a visual experience. Everything is just basically a dull, bland background that you probably recognize. You got multiple games using the same backgrounds or stuff like that. And it's just a sprite of the main characters, and a lot of other characters in the story don't even get sprites. So you know what's happening, like with a text, but you don't really know what's truly happening in the story because there's no visuals to show. I mean, you don't really get much really. You have to rely solely on the text in these other VNs. But in this story right here, it's not just the text that you have to rely on. You don't have to rely on just that. You got visuals that gives you a good idea of what's happening, and that's what I like about this story. Now, I know visuals in CGs and sprites, that takes a lot of effort and time and money. I understand that, but that's what I really like about this story here. The people here really care about it. Not saying that other people don't care about those stories too, but they put the best into it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's happened next. Because this was the big part of the story here. So hopefully everybody ran off in the carriage with all the stuff they had and settled in camp. And hopefully they're waiting for Cedric and Victor to come back. So I'll just remember his name now, Victor. Alright, so thank you all very much for watching. Goodbye.